Hi, this is Nishant Malhotra, sole founder of the Middle Road platform. Welcome to another scintillating podcast with the Middle Road, a global social impact platform. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Simranpreet Singh Oberoi, co-founder of an equitable educational driven nonprofit enabling social change and impact at grassroots level within the Indian ecosystem. The Middle Road is a thought leader platform that fuses media and edtech for a measurable impact. The venture features research-driven publications and articles, online courses, videos, and podcasts in a community-led model across diverse themes and topics. A big hello. Welcome to the platform.
Yes, thank you so much, Nishant. Thank you for the opportunity and very grateful for this. And what you are doing, I think, is very much needed. So thanks again.
Yeah, my pleasure. Just a quick introduction. Simranpreet Singh. So, Simran, how do I address you as Simran, or do you want me to address you in a particular way?
Simranpreet is fine, yeah.
Simranpreet, great to finally have you for a video podcast. And today's discussion will be more about your work and career transition within the development sector. Today's discussion prime focus is to share with the audience your story, enabling social change and impact within the primary public education system in Punjab region in India through Sanji Sikhiya Foundation. Sanji Sikhiya, right? I've got the pronunciation right?
Yes, Sanji Sikhiya, yes.
Sanji Sikhiya Foundation is a platform that supports diverse development initiatives across Punjab. The Sanji Sikhiya's flagship initiative is Punjab Youth Leaders Program, a 2-year leadership program that aims to develop a cadre of young leaders across Punjab to innovate and create systemic and sustainable solutions to address the pressing issues of Punjab region in India. Simranpreet, basically, following it's a collective effort to transform Punjab into a land of hope, courage, and possibilities. He's worn many hats, has worked at multiple organizations within the development sector in India. He has led key strategic initiatives as a part of Genpact CSR efforts. Example, Genpact Social Impact Fellowship, Genpact Center for Process Transformation, and School-Centered Community Development. He's playing a transformative role, I would say, within the education sector in Punjab. His present venture is backed by leading philanthropists like Amit Chandra, Deep Kalra, B.K. Kalra, and Suman Munjal. So hello, Simran. Now, finally, great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks again, Nishant, for the generous introduction.
Yeah. But I think before I start with all the questions, I just need to give a brief about Punjab.
Okay.
It's just a small invigorating snapshot of Punjab state. Punjab is a very popular, multicultural and dimensional state in India, known for world-class artistic urban locations, green agriculture belt, amicable and diverse culture that defines the fabric of Indian diaspora. Its capital, Chandigarh. It's a fabulous place. If you are coming to India, you must go to Chandigarh. Also the joint capital of Haryana, a state in India and a union territory. And it's one of the most elegant and urban cities in the world, I would say. It's known for its architectural and visual splendor. Chandigarh's master plan was designed by world-famous architect Lou Corbusier. The city is home to the iconic Rock Garden and Capitol Complex. Now, other famous architects like Albert Mayer, Pierre Genhai, Jane Drew, and Maxwell Fry have designed the city's housing and buildings based on the information shared by WHC UNESCO. Very important here is that Chandigarh's Capitol Complex is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Now, that's big. That's really big. And the city was the first planned city post-Indian independence. Chandigarh leads in Human Development Index in India. I mean, it's also the highest capital per person in the country. Now, I don't know exactly how updated this figure is. It's a spiritual city for many, including many people. It's a major city in Punjab and houses the famous Golden Temple, also known as Harmandir Sahib. Ludhiana is the most populous and the commercial capital of the state of Punjab. World Bank rated Ludhiana with the best business environment in 2009 and 2013. The city is a still powerhouse and produces more than 50% of Indian bicycles. So in India, if you are actually on a bicycle. More likely, it was made in Ludhiana. Just to give you a brief, snapshot of the Punjab region. Simran, you're doing a lot of fantastic work. I mean, I love what you're doing. You have your experience at various places. You had your education at Ashoka University. Also interviewed Anu Prasad, who played a fundamental role in setting up Ashoka University. Start with, and I'll come to your work experiences also. Let's start with, how did Ashoka University prepare for your work at presently what you're doing at the Sikya Foundation?
So Nishant, maybe like journey to Ashoka, to set some context. Like basically, what led me to Ashoka in the first place. I think that might be useful as well. So so if I like go back to 2006, right, the time when I was in 11th standard, and my dream that time was I want to be like an Air Force pilot, right? And I want to go to the NDA and prepare for that. So what happened was I cleared the written and went to the SSB, the Service Selection Board, and got rejected. And basically I was told that I'm not fit enough to be a pilot. So that was like very earth shattering at that point of time. That what just happened. This is what I really wanted to do. Everyone around me told me, it's okay, why don't you do engineering? And then after that, again, I ended up in a college where I was pursuing mechanical engineering. And then one thing which I feel I did a lot during my college days, and I'm sort of very thankful to that time period because of that, like just a lot of exploration. And that was primarily, I knew this is not what I'm interested in, so I better figure out what am I interested in, right? So at that time I thought the best way for me to figure that out is just to do a lot of things.
Just to interrupt you here, I'm very curious because you talked about my father was in defense. A lot of my grandfather. And when you heard that you're not been selected, did you really feel bad? Was it like an innate thing which has been there for a long period of time that I wanted to go to defense services? Because a lot of Punjabis, a lot of people from Punjab, dominate in many industries, and one of them, of course, is one of the careers is in armed forces. I would say more than like defense services, driven by was the idea of flying. That get me into the skies, right? So I think that is what I was driving at that school days. So yeah, and when I heard that, oh, I'm not fit enough, and I'm not yet there, and I remember this was in Banaras, right, Varanasi, where this SSB was happening. So I wrote in like when I was in the train on my way back to Agra, which is my hometown and where my parents live. So I wrote something, and I remember the title of that still, right? It said, "The Dejected Exit." Yes, I was very dejected at that point, that this is what I was pursuing and all of that. But yeah, that's how it was at that was the feeling at that point. Maybe you would remember this, Nishant. So like back in 2008, that was the time when the first Jagriti Yatra was being planned, right? And when I got to know about it, that there are these, it's a train journey where 300 people from all over the country and the world are going to be traveling across, the periphery of India and visiting different organizations and learning about what they do. So I went for that, and I feel that was a big turning point in my life, right? Primarily because here I was surrounded by a group of people who were so driven, like who wanted to, make a difference, and they were coming from all kinds of background. And even when we visited these organizations, these mission, driven organizations, I was like blown away, because till that time, this word didn't exist for me. Like I was not aware that, people can be so driven about making the world a better place. And this is what, so many of people are doing this. So I think by being in that company, like, getting to know about that tribe of people was very inspiring for me, right? That these people are living such meaningful lives, and I better, figure out what my purpose is as well. So I also want to live a purposeful life, and
all of that. So I think that journey in 2008, Nishant, when I was in second year of college, I think it gave me some clarity. Okay, this is something I may want to do, right? And also, because many people who are doing that, uh, I felt a bit confident as well. So many people can do it. I probably can do it as well. So anyway, so I think there was this shift. I really wanted to share this. Grateful to the Jagriti Yatra movement, which continues to like run to date. Uh, so moving on, actually after that, college finished in 2011, and so post college as well. I think it was probably this community itself which gave me this courage, to take up a path which was not so usual. So I sort of didn't go for the job that I got in Bangalore, and instead I thought, okay, let me pursue this question which has been on my mind, that how are people like me in this country deciding what to do with their lives? Are they well informed? Are they making this crucial decision, right, which probably they impacts the rest of their life? So I was very fascinated by this question because of my own journey, that how.
You sense a purpose, right? Like sort of a purpose or a direction in life, and you found it early. As a matter of fact, I would say.
Yeah, I would say I was like started discovering, like started on
Discovery
that
period.
path. Yeah, so from Pune, I moved to Bombay that time, and I started this thing called Sky Ke Par. Again, you see the connect with the flight. So I was still obsessed with the
Right.
idea of flight. So I was like, okay, what do I do so that children in our country, they fly, they realize their full potential, they discover what they are really interested in. So I started this thing with this idea, with this problem in mind, that because many people, many children, many parents, as I was speaking to them, understanding, I sort of realized there is this lack of exposure which is there. And if I'm able to get this exposure at the school level, maybe children would have, like, it will widen their horizons. Oh, this option also exists, that is also there, right? So some sort of like, how do we get young people test drive different career options before they decide onto one? And yeah, and I think at the core of it, there was this belief that that every child can fly, and because I was still in that zone. Okay, I got rejected, but I think I still believed in myself. I still thought I can make a difference and lead a meaningful life. So uh, so that's what I did in Bombay for a year, with almost, I would say, 100 odd schools, all kinds of schools actually. High income schools, government schools, affordable private schools. So if nothing, it made me aware about the systemic issues which we see in the education system, which sort of later on became like further started focusing on it. So this was the point. After spending a year in Bombay, Nishant, I got to know about Ashoka University, right? And I got to know about the second cohort of the Young India Fellowship Program, which was being launched that time. So yeah, so that's when I, like, with this context, I entered this Ashoka. And to your question, how it sort of helped me, uh, I think at Ashoka, I fell in love with learning, right?
Okay.
And I think that was mainly because of the exceptional faculty. And so, like, for example, and this was an image I had of myself, right? I never thought I would enjoy a subject like sociology of environment, right? Like, no connect, like, was not really into, like, the environmental issues, or even, I think, didn't have that sort of training in sociology. But when someone like an Amita Bhaviskar, who teaches this course at YF, when someone like her was teaching, it was so inspiring, right? Because of her own lived experiences, at with at different places. So it was coming from, like, she was also so passionate about that subject, that topic. Uh, that was very sort of, this love for learning was very sort of reignited, so to say, I think, at YF. And on top of it, of course, you had such brilliant minds as your batchmates, who keep uh, pushing your thinking all the time. And they were also, because coming from such different backgrounds, so thought very differently, analyzed things very differently. So I think it was like, intellectually, I think it was a great place to be. How it is.
It gave you a lot of confidence. It gave you a lot of knowledge. I understand. You made a lot of peer connections. Do you think
Yeah.
it build a strong foundation of, okay, this is what I really want to do. Now I have a academic degree, which is going to take me on that particular side, and sort of that propel you into things which you would do ahead. You think in that direction.
Right. I think, see, at that point of time, I had somewhat clarity. Okay, whatever I do after this has to be in education. There was this, I think, sort of focus, domain focus, was there at that point of time. It also did sort of fear of pursuing a subject I didn't know much about, like, subsided, right? And it gave this confidence that I'll be able to figure it out. Like, I may not know it right now, but if I apply my mind to it and if I spend time on it, I sort of got this confidence that I will be able to figure it out. Being able to listen to thoughts and ideas which are very different to yours, belief systems which are very different to yours, being able to appreciate that and learn more, like, why, like, what makes somebody think about a certain thing in a certain way, because everyone grew up in a different family setting and with different worlds. So I think that was like in abundance. Multiple views and multiple perspectives were in abundance over there. So
I got, and I want to just build on. There are a couple of questions that come to my mind, but before that, we talked about education. Now you have a very diverse experience. You also worked apart from Genpact, you worked as a chief project officer at Shoshet Samadhan Kendra. Now that's where you actually got a lot of learnings, schooling for children in the Musahar community. Now that's a very underserved community, a very, very less privileged people. How much did that have an influence on you? I mean, I do understand, and we'll come to, you said it changed your paradigm. You had different views, you had a different structure, and your education at Ashoka University helped you come out of some of the mindsets. And that maybe led you to your career in education. Now, very particular experience, and you can also build on your work at Genpact, which is like a famous company, an MNC. How much did it lead you to this path?
So there's some context on this, right? So Musahar, moose means rat and ahar means food, right? So traditionally they've been referred to as the Musahar community, right? And they are almost like 4-5 million in number across Bihar and some parts of UP as well. So, and the conditions that they even today that they live in are like very extreme, like extreme poverty. And I've traveled across Bihar visiting different sort of Musahar hamlets where they live, and it's usually at the outskirts of the village. Things are very marginalized, and if you look at the literacy percentage of this community, that is also just 5%, right? So very difficult conditions. There was this person, Shri J.K. Sinha, who was like retired IPS officer from Bihar card. He was the one who started a school for children from this community, whose name was Shoshet Samadhan Kendra, as you just mentioned. So his idea, let me have a residential school for children from this community, and these children would come from all the districts of Bihar, and I would give them like high quality education, and then they would go on to do great things for themselves and also for their community, right? So that was like the vision over there. I visited that school. I think I was still in YF actually. I was amazed because of multiple things, right? One, because it was so challenging to be there, right? I was like amazed how the people who are working in that school at that time, it was still like a, community center converted into a makeshift school. So, like imagine like a 3-story building which had like 350 boys living 24/7 and also studying over there. Very, I think, challenging conditions were there. And
I can feel how poignant it was because I can see that emotions. And I do understand. I mean, I might not be able to connect, but I do understand from where you're coming. Do go on. I mean, I had this experience when I was in Qatar, and I appreciate, you take up this particular, or, you took up the job, and, for such a community, you would have seen so many learnings and how much we can improve in our country.
No, and there's a very interesting story, Nishant, of that as well. So when I visited, and as I was after that 2-day sort of trip, I was coming back, and just generally, I told those kids, I'll see you soon, and I'll be back. And there's this kid who tells me, sir, it's okay if you don't come back, right? And that statement was actually very hard hitting for me, because what it also told me was, here's this kid in 4th standard who probably has been promised multiple times by many people that we'll be back. But maybe, they didn't. And he doesn't want to give himself like a, fake sense of hope that, this person will come back as well. So you might as well don't promise us. And I think those 2 days became 2 years. Probably much of it was because of what that kid told me. I was at that time, I was like, in intense discussions with my parents as well. No way, you can't go to Bihar, and why would you do that? But trust me, I feel now, Nishant, that was probably the best thing I did at that point. What seemed
experience, you'd say, change your whole game-changing experience which changed your life?
Totally, extremely. And of course, because of the nature of the work itself, and it was like very all-consuming, right? So that required me to stay in the school itself, right? So, and like I was surrounded by children time, like morning, when the morning assembly happens 7 a.m. to when they sleep around 10. So I was with them all the time, and going back to my initial sort of interest, that how do I give exposure to school children. And I was at that time, I was like an outsider visiting schools and telling them to do something. But here, like, I had so much time with children that I could do so much. So I think from my own desire to do a lot for children at school level, that I could do a lot for them. I could create venues and opportunities, but at the same time, I think I learned so much, not just about education per se, because it was like a school and I had to see a lot of things in that school, and I learned how hard it is, like, because I also used to teach. For a teacher to make the subject, the lessons that we are teaching interesting every day, I was able to appreciate the work that teachers do a lot more, actually, after the back end that goes in behind that 40-minute, 50-minute minute class. And I think from these kids itself, I learned many life lessons, I would say, because they were so resourceful, as in, because they, from the, and like what they were in that setting, I didn't see any paper being wasted, okay, like that way. So extremely resourcefulness these kids were.
Did it make you stronger? Did it make you more focused and committed in what you're doing? Because that experience itself was so intense. So, and you became more compassionate?
I think so. I think in 2 years, I feel I grew by 10 years actually. And I and one because like I was put in situations I had no idea like what to do. For instance, one fine day, once on Sunday, a kid jumped from the second floor of the school because he wanted to run away to his village, and then have to deal with like, okay, what just happened and how did it happen and what do we do? And uh, or in the middle of the night, you would have instances uh, like a kid fell from his three tire bed, uh, you know, and then like hurt himself, and so all of this was going on, and at the same time, like I was all of like I think 24, 25, and like the school staff, right? I had people who were like in 40s and 50s, and like I still don't know what made Synergy like trust me. Okay, you can lead this school and you can decide. So that way, I think it was, I would say, uh, like a lot of lessons in leadership, a lot of lessons in crisis, like crisis management. How do you handle? And of course, seeing what these children were able to make of that opportunity. I think this whole thing of equal opportunities, and like that's all that it takes. And I'm very proud actually, Nishant, uh, that there are children from like who I had taught while I was there, who are now studying at Ashoka on a full scholarship. Uh, so
That's great. That's a fantastic achievement. You change the
yeah,
life of people, right? And going to Ashoka it's not that easy for somebody to be, especially for a career in social impact.
yeah, I think so. So that's what I think, this commitment and this ability to thrive, right? And because they were thriving back home as well, right? Not that there was it was sad or anything, right? It's so they had learned to live their life, right? No matter what. So I think that resilience I really like learned from these children. How do you thrive and like in any circumstance? So yeah, that's how it was in Bihar, Nishant.
Okay. You were very poignant of, and when you were explaining the experience, and I do understand how much it would have mattered to you. Now, I do understand now from there, of course, the roots came in invigorating and, educating the youth in rural region of Punjab, which is where predominantly now a lot of your work is going in. Just to share some of the statistics, it's good you discussed about the systemic problem. Just to give a brief statistics, India spent about 3.8% of its GDP on education in 2019, compared to a global average of 4.8%, according to UNDP Human Development Report 2019. Now, the figure for Nepal was actually 5.1%. The US, advanced countries like US, 5. Finland was 7.1% for 2019. Just to give, US has got a fantastic education, but Finland has been a world leader in inventiveness when it comes to K-12. Whenever I'm talking about K-12, it's kindergarten to 12th standard. Looking at the prevailing systemic problem within the education sector, you do talk about your flagship program, which is the 2-year Punjab Youth Leaders Program. In terms of impact, I think you've done a tremendous job. You got a fantastic impact. Do speak for yourself. What sort of impact, what sort of KPIs, performance indicators you were looking at, the resistance you had, and what sort of opportunities? How did you balance it, and how did you take in opportunities in your stride?
Right. So I think maybe like I can start from this thing about like why Punjab in the first place, right? Because when we started started on this journey, Nishant, and I was also asking this question myself. Okay, where would I want to like serve for long term, right? What is it that, although never lived in Punjab till recently, there was this deep desire to go there and do something, and mostly the image of Punjab, right? Especially people who are outside Punjab have this image which is very rosy and larger than life and like very prosperous. Uh, but as I sort of dig deeper and learned more, what is really going on. I think what we became clear was that this image, which is there, is 2 decades, 3 decades old. Yes, Punjab was rank 1, rank 2 when it came to per capita income, but that was in the 80s, 90s, right? Right now, like if I talk of just say last year in 2021, the per capita income in Punjab had fallen to just like a lakh, okay, which is even lesser than the national average. Okay. So there's been a consistent decline in economically, and of course, I think what has been enough spoken about is the unemployment, the youth unemployment over there, which is also standing at 30%, which is also more than, by the way, national average. And if you look at India's average, Punjab is sort of shape. Okay.
Mhm.
So that was that. This is what we want to focus on. This is the region we want to say transform. In the next like couple of years, decade. And when we started on this journey, Nishant, so want to share before I get into PYLP, why PYLP is structured the way it is structured, right? After having this like experience, of working in education, also in a corporate, right? So had seen different models, had seen what seems to be working, and we also spoke to several of our mentors who have been working in education, working towards systems change for decades, right? People like Shrija from the India Education Collective, and people at Ashoka and Cavalli Education Foundation, like Teach for India, all these organizations who have been there, right? A few principles we put in place for ourselves, okay, that whatever we do has to be guided like from here. One was like sustainability is extremely important, that the efforts that we take have to ensure a sustainable change, like and not create dependency on ourselves or not create anything in parallel, right? So we need to focus on improving what is there, the system which is already there, right? And the other thing was, instead of going with some sort of ideas or some solutions or some products, okay, you take this capsule and your education system will be transformed. I think the approach we wanted to take was, how do we create an environment so that people can solve their own problems, right? And this also came from this strong belief that, see, the teacher who's been teaching in that pind in rural Punjab knows what needs to be done. Okay, like it has 20 years of experience, has a lot of insights. She probably may not be able to perform to her best for some systemic issues, right? And that's why like systemic issues will need some systemic solutions only. You can't tell her that some quick fix to be given to her and she changes it. So just keeping these principles in mind, that we do what. Now coming to like the role of youth here, because while currently we are focusing on the public education system of Punjab, and that to say also at primary level, but the larger vision, right? The larger vision is for Punjab, right? How do we, like you said in the beginning, how do we transform Punjab into a land of hope, courage, and possibility? And for that vision to happen, the youth has to play a very significant role, right? And hence, whatever we do with the government schools, with the government schooling ecosystem, has to be done through young people. So that was the question for us, that what kind of platform, so that young people from all over Punjab and even rest of the country and even globally can come and give 2 years of their life to make sure that the government primary schools in rural areas improve, right? So, and this is what gave birth to the Punjab Youth Leaders Program, right? So this is the platform that got formed. And what we said during these 2 years, while you make the schools better, right, which is the immediate focus, and that's where all our efforts are towards as well, you are also preparing yourself for a journey beyond 2 years, right? So you are enabling others, you are enabling leadership of others, enabling leadership of teachers, enabling leadership of the panchayat, of the school management committee. While you enable leadership in others, you are, of course, building your own leadership capabilities. And that is what sort of is preparing you for your long-term journey of a purposeful life for Punjab's transformation, right? So this is sort of what, like the way PYLP is designed. And now
This is your third year, right? This is the third year which you are running.
Yes,
right?
Yes, we just completed 3 years. So so far we are working in 3 districts of Punjab. Okay, Fatehgarh Sahib, Patiala, and Ropar. And at the same time, we also have a team at the state level, right? So because again, the whole idea is how do we work closely with the system, and for that to happen, we need to be working at across levels, right? So there are these district teams where the young leaders that we have of PYLP who are working deeply in a few set of schools and clusters and block and making change happen there. And there's a team at the state level which is ensuring that the learnings that are there from the district level are taken in the form of case studies, in the form of evidence, and then we do advocacy at the state level, so that ultimate vision of that, like the 12,000 government primary schools that are there, how do we reach there? And that happens through the state. So and the way in terms of impact, right? So the way we look at
Simulpreet, but just to interrupt you, I know you shared a very on the ground scenario. Now, this is something very interesting here in Punjab. You have Ludhiana, which is one of the most prosperous regions. I think they have more number of BMWs than anybody. And I see Punjab has got a lot of SMEs. They've not been. And then other side, which you're true and which you're pointing out, is another the sad state. So the inequalities have sort of really gone up over the last 2-3 decades. One, which is what I do understand from your chat. The second is maybe Punjab has not been able to build a lot of universities, the sort of even higher education, and only more in SMEs. I mean, they could be sort of in auto, which is one of the major garment industry, is one of the major industries. So you think this has a lot of impact on the ground with the where you have been, whatever you have observed over these years? You think that this inequality is growing, that a lot of people are getting much richer and people have just been left out?
Yeah, totally, Nishant. So if I look at it from an education context, right, almost 50% of children in Punjab, okay, go to private schools, and the rest, of course, go to government schools, right? So it's almost a 50-50 split. And not that all private schools are great, and not that all private schools, of course, private schools also come in their own categories. But the question is, who is going to the government school, right? And usually, parents, if they are not able to send their kid to the private school, that is when they send their kid to the government school, right? So it's not something they're doing by choice, right? And that is exactly what we want to change, right? How do we make government school as the top priority, as the first preference of every parent, right, in Punjab? That's the goal. So yeah, so that difference is very stark, and it also is on the how they're perceived, right? No, our kids don't go there, right? Our kids. So yeah, it's very real. Yeah,
I think so. The government schools, I think, is something which is very common all over India. But great, do share your insights. I'm very interested. I think this is going to be very important for everyone.
Yes. So if we look at again that what is it that we are really doing, right? I think at a very fundamental level, if I share, the work is of bringing people together. Okay, because we say the system is broken, or system is not delivering. It's probably because there are different silos being created, everybody is doing their own thing, and hence the children are suffering. So if we look at it from the perspective of, if everybody who's part of the system first knows what their role is, right? Secondly, they have the required skills, required capabilities to be able to play that role, right? So there's a big chunk of work that we do in capacity building, part of the system, so that everybody can play the role that they have to play. And then the way different actors in the system are interacting with each other. How is a teacher interacting with the parent? How is a teacher interacting with other teachers? How is a teacher interacting with the school leader? How is a teacher interacting with cluster head teacher, right, who's like an administrative authority? How a district education officer is interacting with teachers. So basically, the point I'm trying to make is, because otherwise this idea of systems change can become very abstract, right? So you're saying, if we just ensure that everybody is aware of their roles, has the required skills to play their role, and the way they are interacting with each other among themselves is improved, is transformed, that there is increased collaboration, so that they work together for a common purpose, which is the learning of the child, right? Mostly what happens, Nishant, and this is not just Punjab actually, this is at other places also, there is a lot of blame game. Okay, whenever you speak to a teacher would say, I do the best I do, but parents don't prioritize. Parents, they are busy, they don't do what they have to do, and all of that. And if you speak to a parent, then what would they say is, our role is to send the kid to the school on time every day, and we do that, but the teacher only doesn't teach, right? So basically there is this blame game, right? So I think the role that we see ourselves playing is, how do we, teacher and parent was one example, but this is evident across different actors as well. Can we create a forum at a school where the parents of children, where the teachers, of course, the school management committee, which is there, and the local panchayat, right, which is the local government of that village, we get all of them together, and can we make a vision for the school? This is where our school is today, and this is the needs assessment, this is the data collection that our young leaders do. And then if this is where we are, and if 3 years this is where we have to go, what are the roles that each one of us can play, right?
To add on, sorry, because this gave me an idea. I mean, in US, they have this charter schools, and they did considerably well in certain places.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about schools. I was thinking, how could we also get PPP, private and government sort of involved? This is very interesting of how this, I mean, just thinking, just putting my thinking cap here and trying to think.
As in, just on PPP, there are organizations in Punjab also, like Bharti Foundation and the likes, who are sort of working on that approach, which is called the charter school approach, right? Taking over a school and then running it, and then transforming it. So that is also there. I think again, this approach is, I would say, more of the people that are already there, the structures that are already there. How do we make them work, right? How do we, the school management committees, it's such a beautiful institution, it's a beautiful structure of a parent body, right? Which can play a more active role in the functioning of the school. The panchayat of the villages, I think the good thing or the simple thing I would say in Punjab is, it's like a 1:1 mapping. Every village in Punjab has one panchayat and has one government primary school. So it's like a 1:1. So if we make sure that the panchayat of that village makes the school of that village as its top
responsibility, accountability.
First priority, right? That if we when we think of the development of our village, can we think of the school first, right? Instead of thinking of, say, the Shamshan Ghat first, or the sewage first, or Not that other things are not important, but usually other things we have seen become more important than this. And that is usually, and again, not to sort of blame, and that is usually a politician, like a sarpanch of that panchayat is a politician, right? A politician would do what the people are demanding, right? So how do we create this strong demand for a good quality school at a village level, so that everybody else then make sure this school is the priority? So the sort of slogan that we run in villages, Nishant, is we call it Pind the school, Pind the Maan, right?
Yeah.
How do we make that school as the pride of the village?
Right, pride of that.
Yeah, and once that happens, many other things begin
Would
to
fall into place. Yeah.
Yes, right. So that is like one part of it, right? Which is sort of addressing the demand issue. The other part, which is equally important, is what kind of learning is happening in the classroom.
Teachers, how they are tuned. That's very important side. Yeah.
Bilkul.
How do you think Punjab is doing there? Because I wanted to come to this question. You talked about 12,000 schools. You have already reached about 800 schools now, and you have a huge by 2000, and your plan is by 2025 to reach 12,000 schools, and that's a fantastic work you've already done. This is where I wanted to sort of, what are you looking to achieve? How are you going to reach their strategies, like maybe community build up, what you're thinking, what sort of partnerships you're looking, what sort of private participation? You can start about also demand and supply, because your plan, I think, is working a lot in the supply side. Am I correct here? It's helping.
And then I would say it's like, they're going in parallel, sort of like it's like both have to happen. Like the teachers, the supply side, the teachers in the classroom, they have to do their best. The supply side, the role of the community of the panchayat, like, they have to do their best. So I would say they sort of enable each other, so to say, right? So yeah, so you're asking how do we?
Yeah, and just to ask a very personal question from your experience,
Yeah,
how much do you think teachers can influence? How much do you think the quality of teachers, their commitment and accountability is important in driving a sustainable change, specifically in the education sector? Since they are mentors, they are opinion makers, they are defining people in your life, especially at such a younger age.
see, like teachers are the one, like, they are the key people in an education system, right? Of course, children, but like Punjab roughly say has around, say, 1 lakh teachers, right? So still at a very broad level, it's not that big a number, right? In that sense. So like Punjab in that sense, I would say is like a manageable state, like not too big, not too small in that sense. So to your question, as in nothing is more important than teachers, right? That is one. So see, here's the thing, and here's the belief that we operate with as well, Nishant, right? In any system, right? There are say 10% of the people who are extremely motivated, who are extremely who are intrinsically driven, who don't need any like external incentive or validation. They are doing what needs to be done. So it's very important, I think, to identify these people, right? And once we have identified them, it's very important to learn from them that how are they able to make it work? Because see, the external challenges are there for everybody, right? So how are these people still within that context, within those structures, are still able to do very well? So once we have identified them, how do we capture in a manner which can be shared with others? So, or you can say sharing of best practices, right? So one of the programs, Nishan, we like sort of launched in all the 3 districts we work in, Patiala, Fatehgarh Sahib and Ropar, which is called Super 100. Okay. And the purpose is this: can we identify 100 teachers and there are roughly say 1,000 teachers, right? So roughly 10%. So can we identify 100 teachers in these districts who are of that kind, right? Who are the kinds you would want all the teachers to be, in some sense, right? So then we sort of documented their practices. Okay, what is it that these teachers did? Like, in spite of COVID, in spite of all of that, they were still able to engage their children in a very meaningful manner. What did they do? And then how do we, again, share those practices? So going back to your point, there are people, right, who are doing. So it's a matter of just spreading that energy, spreading those practices to other places. So yeah, and in terms of like the scale that you were asking, right? So I think so this is one way, right, of
So
sharing the best practices, but the like maybe I think going back to your previous question, like what's the strategy, right? We are at
scaling up, right? What sort of?
Yeah. So it's a very this question of scale versus depth is like we grapple with all the time, and again I think we have, I would say, have some ideas. Again, not very. I would say certain. This is what will work. I think we are learning as we are going. So I think it's like for us, we have defined our scope very clear, right? That there are 19,000 government schools in Punjab, but we are focusing on the 12,000 primary schools, right? So I think the scope is very clear. Now, I think the learning has been anything that we want to do at scale will happen through the system, because we can't have our operations everywhere, right? There's only so much that an organization like ours can do in terms of its on-ground presence. So it has to be done with the system, right? Now, if something has to be done with the system, it has to be very simple. Okay, anything complicated is not going to scale. Okay, so if we say, okay, we have designed this program which is all very jazzy and this and that, and the system will resist big time, right? So it has to be very simple asks, and that requires a lot of work at our end, because then we need to be very clear. Okay, this is what will really work, and this is what then we can scale, right? So because the other thing which we need to, I would say, learn as an organization, and it could be Sanjay Sikhi or anyone, because if we want to make scale happen through the system, right, we need to be aware of the whole system in the first place, right? It can't be just at a particular level, because everyone in the system, whether at a block level, at a district level, or even at a state level, if you look at it, is ultimately supporting teachers in some sense, right? Going back to a previous point, teachers are the highest viewers, like they are the ones who are essentially sort of delivering, right? So I think this understanding of how the whole structure is and what role is each one playing. So I think what we are trying to do, Nishan, that these districts that we have, right, where the 3 districts, how do we do very deep work over here, right? Very deep work in terms of to be able to very confidently share what works, right? And create very strong evidence, right? And it could come from either from what we are doing or what is already happening. Like I said, these super 100 teachers, right? It's already happening. It's not that we are doing anything. So it could be both ways, like basically creating strong evidence, okay? And then through the team that we have at the state level, how do we take this evidence to the state level and do advocacy over there, right? And give recommendations to the state of like what needs to be done, how do you, like what needs to be launched, and all of that, right? And to do this well as well, like the question that we keep asking ourselves, like, is 3 districts enough, right? What's the critical mass, right? So like at this point of time, we are like planning to launch launch our work at the border districts as well. So if you see Patiala, Ropar, Fatehgarh Sahib, they are on one side of like one end of Punjab, and we're now thinking at the border, because border districts in Punjab have very different dynamics, have very different needs. So maybe what we do, we have to test out whether it works in that context as well, right? So I think that's a question we're trying to sort of like ask ourselves: what's that critical mass? Because one is we advocating for certain things at the state. Another is if there are people at the district, teachers or district education officer or block primary education officers, they are advocating for something at the state as well, right? So the more people you have advocating for a certain kind of thing, then that will happen. So how do we create more advocates within the system who believe in a certain approach, who believe that with stronger partnership, stronger relationship with the community, with the panchayat, change can happen, who believe that if teachers, like a group of, say, teachers at a cluster level, and a cluster has around 10 schools, just for that. So if teachers at a cluster level come together, and if they decide how they want to teach for the next month, and if they engage in a planning activity, like something as simple as that, right? Like not very, just teachers coming together, planning what they have to teach for the next month, learning about different innovative, creative strategies from other teachers. So they're learning, and then they like execute it, and then they come back after a month and then sharing. Again, going back to that, principle, creating an environment for people where they can solve their own problems. So we just need someone to facilitate such a space. So yeah, so the more people who believe in such an approach, I think we would be able to reach to the 12,000 mark. Yeah.
Right. So the 2-year program which you have, it's like you have different people coming and teaching them. They get some sort of academic, they get an academic training, but they also get on the hands training. Exactly, how is it? Could you speak more about the curriculum, which I think that went missing?
Sure. That's very important. See, these young leaders who are coming in terms of how do we set them up for success, right? That's what you're asking, right? One is there is a like in the beginning there's like a 4 to 6 week long residential induction program for them. Okay, so wherein they learn about themselves in the first place. I think because it's at the end of that's a leadership program, right? So being aware of their own strengths and what they stand for, and just learning about going deeper within themselves. Secondly, because they work in teams, so we have 2 young leaders working in a certain education block, right? So just learning about like each other as a group, because what we're also trying to do is like form like a very strong community, right, of young people, which is very close knit. And then finally, what they have to do out in the system at the government schools, right? Which includes holding these spaces, right? So facilitation as a skill, right, is a big.
Do you teach them specific skills? Like, are there subjects like in economics? Teach something like economics, mathematics, or even literature? Is some sort of
yeah. So in terms of yes. So in terms of subjects, so some of them are very education specific, right? They read up about the the important documents which are there, national curriculum framework to education, things like that they are aware of what is written there, and so that they build this awareness that what we do is aligned to these national documents which are already there. And then going deeper into the teaching practices, right? When we say that we will capture these best practices of teachers, how do you observe a classroom, right? What are the things to look at when a teacher is teaching, right, in terms of her engagement levels with the children and all of that. So it's very like education sort of centric. uh, Going back to the demand side and the governance discussion we were having, so also building this awareness about, say, how does a panchayat function, the Panchayati Raj Act, for instance, right? How does what consists of a school management committee, right? So getting to know about all these structures, and because this whole work is with systems, so systems thinking is something they go deep in to understand.
Just to sort 2 years is a long time, right? So this is the residential program, free of cost, is it? Like, how is it? How do you?
No. So when they start, it's a residential sort of training learning component, and then they are all in their respective blocks, respective education blocks. Like one block has around 50 schools, so there are two young leaders who are working in one block, right?
Okay.
And so it's a full-time thing, and they are paid a stipend to do this as well, right? So, and while they are working with their schools and they're making these visits and meeting the teachers and all of that, and holding those spaces for the community and for the teachers, every week there are these reflective spaces for them where they come back, and it's this sharing and this skill building in terms of what more they have identified as their own learning need, that I need to understand this as well. So I think they keep coming back with questions. So it's a so after that initial induction, it's like a learn and learn while you do, right? So it's learning while doing. So that's how the 2-year program then is structured. So much of their time is on the ground. Much of their time is on
the ground. Okay, so there no join time is to go to schools, interact with teachers, try to understand what the problem is, and try to see how they can contribute. And during that period of time, paid a stipend. And what is then the end goal of the program? To make them teachers, or to go into different careers? What would be your end goal be of this flagship?
Yeah. See, it's a two-pronged sort of goal, right? One, of course, is we want to bring about a systemic change in the education system, right? And are working towards that. And what they do during these 2 years, it doesn't end there. The work continues beyond the 2 years as well, and it's taken forward by the team in that particular district. So work continues. So this is one end goal. How do we make the schools better? Right? The other end goal is how do we ensure that these young leaders who graduate from the program are, say, committed to Punjab's transformation in the long term, right? They may choose any domain, right? And there are program components to help them discover their purpose, right? There's an entire piece on purpose discovery, right, where they again engage in a set of reflections. They do certain experiments, certain projects. I want to explore, say, sports, for instance. Somebody wants to explore agriculture. Someone wants to explore gender. So they have their own sort of areas they would want to see, if that is what they would want to go deeper into. So the idea is that after 2 years, they are equipped to fly and fly in the domain they choose for themselves.
So what would be the domains they will choose? This is what I'm trying to think. When they do come to you, what is their end goal? What do they want to do? Of course, one, they have to be in the education sector, which is what predominantly. What would these people? What exactly are they looking for in the end? Fair enough, they get a very good idea about. You teach them. There are certain classes. They might just get some skills both in qualitative and quantitative. That's what the whole idea is. But what do they do then after finishing off? Have you tried to create a cohort where they help you with careers after you finish the 2-year program?
Yeah. So I can see we so far we have had one cohort graduate, which graduated, right, last year.
Last year,
the founding cohort graduated, right? So I can share what are they doing now, right? I think maybe that will make it more real. So most of them are in this sort of social sector broadly, right? There's one person who's joined an education-based non-profit in Haryana. Then in Yamunanagar, I think she went. There was an opportunity she got there. There's one person who's joined an education non-profit in Punjab itself. There are two of our alumni who have actually, it's interesting, it's election times in Punjab right now. So they have ventured into supporting, different political parties. So they are helping out in campaigning and all of that. There's one who decided to pursue and go for another master's degree. And so there's one who's pursuing that in development itself, like master's in development studies. So yeah, I think so. This is broadly, what these people are doing. In terms of domain, so it could be anything. Although we are seeing, like even in the second cohort, which is about to graduate in another few months, many of them are interested in education per se. But again, it's not any like we are not restricting anybody for any particular purpose. That's why purpose discovery is an altogether exercise that they go through. So yeah, and then we link them up with different opportunities, and whichever there is a fitment from both sides, and then they take it forward. Yeah.
Rampant problem of drug use and how this is going to help pensions. But I think we don't have much time here. So we'll rush off to the last question. I think, but have you been able to communicate whatever you wanted to about what you're doing? Have you been articulate in that, or do you want to add something onto that?
No, I think it's fine. I've shared, I think, quite a bit. Unless you feel there's something, some other aspect you would want to touch as well.
When you invite these applications, it's all open, right? And the minimum requirement is they should be graduates, or they should be just pass out from 12th class. How is it?
Yeah.
Complete the K-12?
Yeah, no. So graduation is minimum requirement. Okay. So but the discipline could be any. They could, any discipline. So people anywhere in the world are welcome to, to apply and. We are also looking to hope sides, and we have people from the Punjabi diaspora who are, coming in for the cohort as well. We in fact had a girl in Canada for the third cohort, got selected and went through the process and everything. But due to COVID, she couldn't come here. So we started, doing some projects with her while she was there. So we are hoping that we are able to have people from the outside India also coming in here and playing their role.
That's a very good thing, to come with. Now, you had and you shared a lot. So I'll just go directly. And I think you explained a lot, which does communicate some of the interventions. You've already spoken about it. Finally, we go to the last question. Do share any aha moment that brings joy to your life. You had a lot of experiences, very intense. Anything you want to share, which you really cherish?
Yeah. See, I think, Nishant, what we do is very difficult to explain sometimes. Okay. And in fact, the first question that is asked to us, even on the ground, if I can speak in Punjabi, like, "Tusi karde kyo," right? What do you really do? So I think so what gives immense joy is when we meet somebody who instantly gets us. Oh, this is what you do. So I'll share a small, I think, anecdote which might, bring home the point. So there's this place in Patiala. Okay, so there was an issue of the boundary wall of that school, that it had to be done, and it was not being done for quite some time. All of us, over there, decided, okay, we'll just go to the office of the block development officer over there, who can then release funds so that the sarpanch, of that village can then get the boundary wall constructed. When we went there, and there were 5-6 of us, including the 2 teachers of that school as well. Okay, so while the officer, just by seeing that, there's so many people who are coming here and were asking for the boundary wall, so he instantly called his secretary and did the job. That happened. But what also happened, so there was this another sarpanch of another village who was sitting there, who was just observing what was happening, and he said again, like in Punjabi, "Acha, tusi system nu pump kar deo," right? if you want me to translate, like, oh, so you really, make the system work, right? So I think, and of course, while he used, the analogy of a pump for us, okay, that you make the system work. So yeah, I think this gives immense joy, Nishan, that whenever we meet somebody and in the first interaction, they just get it. Okay, this is what you do. Because there's this perception of NGOs, especially in rural areas. Oh, now this NGO has come. They would give something. They would donate something. They would give some material, right? And we're like, we are not giving anything. We are just making things work. So yeah, that gives joy to us.
Simranpreet, okay, great. You spoke about a lot of stuff. Is there something which you want to add right now?
Yeah, I think I would just say that, see, what we are doing is a long-term mission, and is like a movement which needs many people to come forward. So one of the things which we have been doing in Punjab and somewhat global regions also, like creating these chapters, right, of Sanji Sikya Patiala, Sanji Sikya Amritsar, and even like globally, in US and Singapore, there are some chapters. And the idea is that how can many people come forward and contribute towards, for the children of Punjab, right? So there are these avenues to become part of these chapters and engage more deeply with the mission. So yeah, who may want to do that, like, we would love to welcome them to come and be a part of the mission. Yeah.
Great. I really hope people do come in. I think you're doing some excellent work. This needs to continue in a systematic way. And I think what the whole idea is, like you said, you're trying to build a community and, looking at a very long-term strategic approach. Here, the theory of change model could come in. I mean, you're doing a lot of interventions and see how the outcome comes out. And I'm sure we'll know the results over a period of time. We have already reached out a lot of schools. 850 schools over a period of 3 years is not bad. It's very excellent. At least, the outreach has been good. Very focused. Out of 19,000 schools, you already focused on 12,000. Pretty much know what sort of schools you are, looking at, so that's you're very clear on that. And I wish you really best. Thanks a lot for sharing, a lot of time, and you spoke about your initiatives, your life, what motivated you. I really hope that you are able to achieve, not only achieve, but nurture, a lot of leaders for tomorrow who could lead, and bring about the systemic change. We really need that in the education space, specifically primary sector. And let's do our own best on how best we can help.
Yes, thank you so much, Nishant. It was very lovely interacting with you. In fact, I think you have, given me the inspiration to do this kind of podcast interaction with our school teachers and principals. Like, I think this could be a great medium for to amplify the work that they do. So thank you for that. What
also came in, like the 100 teachers concept is very good, and how best you can take the best practices of these teachers and sort of spread out. It's something which I learned from my experience, when I was studying in the US, Singapore, and China. That's what I learned from there, is like how best I could take from the practices of all the academicians or people whom I met. So that's something which could be done, sort of a peer thing, peer group. And you can use technology for it. Like you said, podcast, create a simple, site, and where people could sort of a community forum. I think that could also help a lot. This is just an idea which came in right now when I was talking to you.
Yeah. It was good. And people out there, they come forward and, apply for the Punjab Youth Leaders Programs, fourth cohort. So
change is contagious. You never know. Let's hope for the best.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishant.